Okay. Welcome to yet another exciting event by the Accredited Gemologists Association. I know some of you are new to us, not from our group, but we're hoping that you will be with us after this because this is a very exciting and wonderful group to be with. If you are new to us, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Rita-Livia and I'm the Vice President of AGA. And we have Kate Donovan here. She's our marketing consultant, and she will be taking care of all sorts of information for you during the panel. If you don't know anything about AGA, I have to tell you that we are a unique group of people, an international group of people sharing passion for gemology. So we do that actually through education and events most of the time, and AGA has been doing it since 1974. We are marking our 50th year anniversary this year. And we are so happy that we could provide such great meetings, events, and come together with the most amazing gemologists and gem and jewelry professionals together at our events. We have a lot to say about AGA, but I'm not going to take too much of your time. Please visit our website and you get all the great information there. You can stay in touch with us and you can get all the information about the upcoming events as well. I highly recommend that. Today's event is actually open to anyone. It is not just a members event. So this is important to emphasize that this would not be possible to provide such a great meeting through AGA and AGA platform without our sponsors. So I would like to acknowledge our sponsors, and if you consider them for your business needs in the future, we would appreciate that. We have 2024 Ruby sponsors as Gem Shopping Network, GCAL, Stoller, Roskin Gem News Report, and AGTA. And we have 2024 Emerald sponsors, Magilab, Dana, Chicago Gem Evaluation, and AIGL. Heritage Auctions, Quantum Leap, Canadian Gemological Association, Scottish Gemological Association, Gemological Association of Great Britain, ASA, and AIJV. So without further ado, I'd like to move on to our event, but a little bit of housekeeping as well. If you haven't used GoToWebinar before, you're going to see the control panel right in front of on your screen. And all the attendees are muted and their cameras are off, but we have two boxes that you can share information. One is the chat box that Kate will be posting all sorts of related information and links through that. And the other box is the questions box, which we will be monitoring and repeat the question to our panelists during the talk. Whenever you feel like it, please write down the question, type it up. You are all encouraged to ask. Please do so, because this is going to be open to you, and we're not going to be just the people asking questions and talking, but we would like you to participate. So please type your questions up anytime, and we will relay the question and read back to our panelists. So it is important that you participate. That's the whole purpose of this event. I'm actually very excited about this event because I love working with talented and young people, and this is such a great group of people, and they're brilliant. And our guests, I'm sure you read their really impressive bios from the announcement, so I'm not going to read it all back to you and take too much of your time. But what's unique about them are that obviously, being a gemologist and working with AGA on this panel, they didn't stop at being a gemologist, and they also moved on to lapidary and then making their own jewelry, and they're very successful at it at a very young age, and they're all self-employed people. They don't work for other people. This is a hard life. So, but I know that there are so many people out there wanting to do different things just after learning gemology, after becoming gemologists. It's not just about selling gemstones or being a gemologist in a lab. It's not part of the jewelry business only. There's so many different facets of gemology that you can apply to your passion. So I'd like to know from these wonderful young people how they do this, how they started it off, and we will start asking questions. And again, you're all encouraged to ask questions for those. So I don't want to talk too much, but I just like to welcome them, Rita-Livia Erikson. She's joining us all the way from Estonia. We have Adam Parker coming from Durango, Colorado, and our brilliant Derek Katzenbach from Farmington, Maine. They all have very unique backgrounds and interesting stories to share. So I'm going to leave it to them by asking if they could introduce themselves and if they want to talk about any of their work. We're going to share a PowerPoint presentation, and I'd like to ask Rita to start with how to maybe you can tell us about yourself and your journey, how you became a gemologist and how you started doing all these designs and work, and maybe you can show us what you've done with the images as well. I'm still waiting for the okay, sorry, it's my fault. I did not started it, so we're getting the PowerPoint now. Rita, would you like to start? Say a few words, maybe.
My name is Rita-Livia Erikson, and my journey actually started with jewelry. Gemstones came later, at least all the faceting and gemology side of it. Here are some examples of gems that I cut from rough, and also an example of a recut that I did. Both are things that I really enjoy, and what's also quite fun about it is that there are only a handful of people who can facet in Estonia. But well, only like two people who do it. Well, 2 or 3 people who do it professionally, not just as a hobby. Anyway, I started with jewelry, and I studied in the Estonian Academy of Arts jewelry art, and I went to study because I found I wasn't able to find jewelry in stores that I myself would want to wear. So my solution was that I should start making things that I like myself. So my purpose was to create things for myself, not to sell. But the first motivation. After graduating, a few years after that, I went to the US with the goal to actually discover the jewelry world and to improve those skills. But through a few amazing coincidences, I instead got the opportunity to learn faceting from Meg Berry. And this is where the gem side of my journey started. I bought my faceting machine before I had even tried faceting, which I wouldn't recommend anybody else to do, but I guess I was lucky. I liked it. So anyway, it traveled to Estonia in a carry-on bag, which was also funny because it weighed 22 kilos.
How did you do that?
And about a year after I returned, after 6 months in the States, I was working more with gems. I was faceting, and I was working as a gem cutter for a ruby mining company. And during that time, it was actually again Meg who planted the idea to study gemology, and this is how the gemology side started, because I knew I couldn't afford the education myself in any of the institutes. I mean, the costs of living and so on, plus everything else. And I got lucky, I guess, because I got the GIA scholarship, and I got the opportunity to learn gemology in Bangkok, and I did the whole GG over there. And after that, I've been just working on all those different things, jewelry, gems, and also gemology, which are, in my opinion, all very important. So
That's great. And none of these things are easy anyway, and emphasizing on getting the education and through scholarship especially is a good thing to do.
This is what
None
I
of
recommend
these things are
others.
easily achieved economically. So yes, that's a great point. Thank you. Shall we look at some of your work? Can you tell us
Yes.
about these?
These are earrings that I carved from machine obsidian, tiny hands. The backsides are white gold, and they go through the piercings. This
Sorry, go ahead.
This was actually a custom order which started from another piece that I made for an exhibition, which was similar because it was also hands that were carved from stone, and they were earrings, but there were a few more details about them. And well, I think hands are very, the image itself speaks a lot, I think. So I personally really like the image of hands, and I like to use it because it gives the opportunity to interpret it in many different ways.
You said those are carved.
Sorry?
Those are carved too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, but to be honest,
obsidian is quite fragile too.
Yeah, but
obsidian is material to carve.
But obsidian itself, I would say it's pretty easy to carve because it's quite soft.
Mm.
But it chips away very quickly.
For example.
It chips away very quickly. It has a very sharp chip in it. It's not easy.
I didn't have much
anyway, I'm not a carver, so I'm not gonna say anymore. Okay, let's move on to your other jewelry and see.
These are both rings that include gems that I cut myself, and the rings are both done using lost wax casting. So I carved the rings in wax, and then they were both cast in gold. One is yellow gold and the other is white gold.
Okay.
Also something that I really enjoy. I find it often easier to create the rings in wax because I understand the objects better as tiny sculptures. For example, 3D is much more complicated for me, and really a beginner at using that kind of modern technology.
The next ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are all filigree, also very old technology that I really enjoy. I make this. I make all the wires and everything myself. So I start with casting and drawing the wire and making the filigree wire and all that. It takes a lot of time, so there aren't many people who actually do filigree nowadays, and I think it's for many it's I guess tedious, but to me it's kind of similar as faceting, because you kind of get so into it and you lose track of time and you just do the small details and concentrate, and finally something gets finished.
Okay, thanks. Next one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
These are ear cuffs that I've done. Well, it started with a piece of jewelry that I made for myself. At first, I wanted to make an earring, but it turned out I didn't need a piercing at all, so it turned out to be an ear cuff. And after a few years, it turned out that the shape actually fits most people. The funny thing is that most of the people who tried my ear cuff on were actually men, including Derek.
You had them in Tucson.
Sorry?
You had them in Tucson.
Yeah, I did.
They're very fashionable these days anyway, so they're cool.
Yeah. Well, this is a small series of the same design, basically, of the ear cuffs that are all made of gold and all have different natural gemstones that I myself cut.
Thanks.
So,
okay, next one. Let's see that one. Yeah, another one on that.
Yeah. This is an earring that touches to the ear through two piercings. I made this for actually an exhibition, and I named it Noise because it kind of represents for me basically all the noise that surrounds us and kind of like attacks us even from, well, people, media, just the environment, all that. It's often not kind to us.
Thanks. Okay, more. We have more from you.
Oh yeah, these. This is actually one of the oldest series I've done. Definitely more than 10 years old. When I made the first pieces of jewelry using this style. These are all made with wax, and they're made drop by drop, just adding little wax drops to create the details. The rings are made straight on the mandrel, so they would be the right size and the right shape. Otherwise, they would just well, fall apart and wouldn't work. And they're all one of a kind, which means that no details are ever repeated. So this is one of the ideas I myself like about jewelry a lot, is that things that are just mine, no one else ever has. At least not the exact same things.
Thank you. Well, Rita, thank you so much. I mean, this is such a great insight and shows so much of your artistic side. So we do appreciate that. We will definitely get back to you. I'd like to ask Adam about his journey, and maybe we have a slide that we can start with that. Here we go. Adam, tell us about it.
So my journey in the industry really started in geology. So education first. In geology, I was exposed to a tremendous amount of mineral samples, rocks, gems, all kinds of different stuff. And in that process, I discovered that I really like to make jewelry. So I started making wire wraps, which were on the previous slide. Pretty like basic stuff that mostly featured just raw crystals. I didn't do any sort of cutting or anything like that in my work. I did a little bit of lapidary work, but primarily I was doing just like raw crystals wrapped in metal. And then after I graduated from Fort Lewis and got my geology degree, I went on to work at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, which is where this gold specimen is. And at that position, I was exposed to more gems and high-end material than I've ever seen in my life. This rhodochrosite is called the Alma Prince. It's a twinned crystal that's similar to the Alma King, which is one of the finest rhodochrosite samples that's ever been recovered. So this one is not on display, but it's something that I got to see in my position. And working at the museum was my first sort of experience in gemology as a career. Before that, I really didn't think that I could make a career out of something with working in gems and minerals. My school was more focused towards oil and gas and mining jobs, and so that was kind of the focus. But once I worked at the museum, I realized that maybe this is actually something that I could pursue. Unfortunately, the position was only a temporary thing. It was about 6 months. So after that, I ended up leaving the geology and gemology world for a little while, and I worked for a laser company where we manufactured different imaging lasers, not really geology related at all, but while I was working there, I was working on my own jewelry brand and making pieces, selling them every so often. I don't have a ton of photos from that time period, but it was kind of just more having fun, selling a little bit, and just kind of teaching myself how to do different skills like engraving, stone setting, fabrication, wax carving, and then eventually I started to learn CAD. And then 2020, I got my fasting machine. I got it right before COVID, and I had no experience fasting, similar to Rita, and it was definitely a huge learning curve at the start there. I think my first stone took me like 4 days to finish, and it fell off the dot probably like 5 or 6 times. So there was a lot of learning to be had there. So eventually I got sick of working in the laser industry and decided that I did want to pursue my jewelry and gem passion, but I wasn't really exactly sure how to legitimize it all. So I decided to go to GIA, and I was also fortunate enough to get a scholarship for that program. Without it, I don't think I probably would have been able to go, just because it is so expensive, and living in California is super expensive. So I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship. And so right as COVID was kind of lifting up, I did my GG program and did it on campus at Carlsbad. It was kind of crazy. We only had half a class because there was only so many students they would allow per session, but we were fortunate enough that we got to get way more one-on-one time with the teachers, so I felt like I got a really good education there with being like a half class. Once I graduated from GIA, I decided to move to Durango, which is where I went for my undergrad. And then I started to work on what I do now, which is, I think, the next slide. Which is a lot of my work features my own gemstones, but I also do work with a ton of other cutters. The photo on the bottom is a Brazilian quartz that my friend Nick Leibowitz cut. It features, or the piece features a garnet that I cut, which is in the bale. And then the quartz is backed with titanium, which is with all that iridescent rainbow colors are from. These two rings are 14 karat yellow gold rings that I cut the stones for as well. The top one is actually my wedding band that I'm wearing right now. And then the Oro Verde quartz is just a fun fantasy cut stone that I do. So now my work features a lot of stones that I cut, but not all of it. I also do a ton of repairs and custom jobs and stuff like that. Oh, and then I guess a year ago this month, I opened up my retail store, which has been a huge change from a home-based studio to a retail. It's been a total paradigm shift, but very rewarding.
Great. Thank you. We will definitely get back with more questions, I'm sure. Derek, I know you well. I love your work.
Thank you.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I guess starting off, I mean, it's number one, it's been amazing to hear everybody's stories. You know, everybody starts off differently, and my story was a little different. I guess I was working in Bar Harbor. I was working in a little store, and I decided I was going to college at the time for marine biology. And I was dead set on being a marine biologist for years and years and years. I mean, since I was probably like 4th or 5th grade, I just decided that's what I'm going to do. And I did that, you know, and did biology and never really focused on any art at all. So I was never really into art or artistry or anything. I just worked on sciences. And then I went to a gem show while I was in school. And I just started buying stuff. I mean, I had no idea you could buy gemstones. And I spent a week's pay in about an hour. And then I went to the ATM and I did it again. And I had these like handfuls of tourmaline and I had like jade, and I still have most of them. They're actually in like a little fishing tackle box that I used to keep all my stones in. But I was addicted. I mean, you go to a gem show and I feel like anyone that kind of has been there and is in the industry kind of knows that feeling. We're like, oh, I want one of those and I want one of those. And it hit me pretty hard right from the beginning. So that was the starting point, the very beginning of my journey. But when I got all these stones, I really didn't know what to do with them. I mean, I just bought them. So I spent probably $1,000 on stones with no idea what I was going to do. But so the store I was working in, I sold knives and binoculars for the store, but we also sold T-shirts and jewelry. It was kind of like a shop, you know, right in downtown Bar Harbor. So we sold a little bit of everything. But the owner sold these rings. So they're made by this company called Trips. So they make kind of like pre-notch settings where you just squish down the prongs over stones. So you buy calibrated stones and then you just pop them in and squish the prongs down. So he showed me how to do that. I was like, oh, this is really neat. So I made a ring, but I didn't really make it. Or that was the feeling I got. So I was like, I really want to move on and figure out how to make something. So there was a local cutter and goldsmith named Addison Saunders, and he had made the Maine State tourmaline necklace, and he had made tons of things. He was basically a custom jeweler. So he gave lessons. So I went and I took lessons from him for about a year. And then he kept mentioning GIA to me. He's like, you should probably go to GIA. You'd really like that's a good idea for you. And I was like, okay, GIA. And I didn't really know what he meant by GIA. I was like, sure, GIA, Gem School, you know. So then I ended up moving maybe like a year or so after that, and I moved to Farmington, where I am now. And there was a local jeweler here who had also taken lessons from Madison. And so I walked into his store and I just kind of explained who I was and said, "Oh, are you looking for a job, or are you looking for anyone who would, make anything?" He said, "Well, not really, but I can show you some things on the weekends." I said, "Oh, sure, that'd be great." So I went in every Saturday, and I started just kind of learning repair work. He would take a chain and rip it apart, throw it on the bench, and say, "Okay, now fix it." And so he was a local friend, and he's still a good friend of mine, Ron Gelinas, and he would do the same thing. "Okay, now here's a ring. It's a size 7. Make it a 6," and we'd kind of go from there. And within, I don't know, a couple months, it started getting closer to Christmas, and he said, "Why don't you, start working for me a little bit on the weekends or during the week?" And so I started doing that, and I loved it. It was so much better than what I was doing. And then probably shortly after Christmas, he said, "You need to go to GIA," and I started looking it up and making, being a lot more serious about it. So then I ended up going to GIA. I went to Carlsbad. I took my GG, I took my GJ, so I took both the metalwork and the gemology courses out there. I met a ton of contacts. I met a bunch of people who were willing to share, which is one of the wonderful things about GIA. Everyone just had like this passion, and they woke up and everyone's happy. They all go to school for what they want to be doing, which I loved. So I went to GIA, then I ended up coming back and working for Ron for about 5 years, doing all the custom work and repair work. And I learned how to cut stones after that first year coming back. He had a friend that cut stones, Bob Prouty, who's in New Hampshire, or right on the New Hampshire main line. And I drove, 3 hours to go cut a stone. And same thing, it took me 8 hours to cut a 3-carat amethyst. So, it's $100 stone, but it was life-changing. I immediately called up my original teacher and bought a faceting machine and spent, I don't know, I think he sold it to me for $1,500. I gave him $500 a month for 3 months and bought the machine and cut hundreds of stones on it. Every night I'd go to my basement, I'd sit there after work and cut another stone. So that's, I guess, kind of the starting point of how I got into gems and jewelry. But now, I do a lot of cutting. I do a lot of custom work. I do CAD work. I do a mixture between CAD and fabrication. I find that to be the best mix for today's world to speed things up. We get the precision that you need and get layouts done for pave. And yeah, I think that's a lot of it. Looking at the picture here, there's a gorgeous bonitite that I had just cut just before Tucson. I love cutting American stones. They're really, really fun to cut. It's kind of, I look at them as American treasure. They're so rare to find, but it's worth that extra effort you put into it. And on the right is a huge yellow sapphire. That one I cut for Jeffrey Bilgore. I think it was 80 something carats. It's a big unheated stone. And I had recut it from an original stone, and it had some inclusions, and we decided that this would really, make the stone jump, and it did. It was a huge difference between where the stone started and where it ended. So yeah, I think there's some more pictures. So this is a 32 carat main tourmaline that I had just faceted. This one won 3rd place in the AGTA Awards this year. That was a spectacular stone. That one had just sold. My friend Ryan Brimley, I'd cut that for him and Amanda. And that's probably the best green main tourmaline I've ever seen. The color just glows. And he was lucky to find the piece of rough, and I was lucky to be the one to cut the piece of rough. I originally told him it would cut a 5 to 10 carat stone because that's all I thought was in the piece of rough, and it kept just not getting smaller. I'd trim a piece off and look at it and go, "That's pretty clean. We should probably try to cut that." And it ended up being 32 carats. So that was a spectacular gem. And the stone on the right is another American stone. That's a Himalaya tourmaline. It's a bicolor from California. That one was about 7 carats. I sold that one during COVID. So I was I'd come here and cut a stone and then go back and hang out with the family and then come back to work, cut a stone and go back to go to the family. And everything would sell online in like minutes. It felt like everyone was online looking for gemstones and custom work. So it was a good sales point for me. So what do we have on the next slide here? Okay, so this is some recutting. I've done the top stone is a pink Couperin tourmaline I did for my friend Brian Lichtenstein of 3090 gems. So it's a huge copper bearing tourmaline. You can see the giant window, and I actually didn't have to recut the crown. I was able to save the stone just by using the right angles and making some proper adjustments. I think I also saved maybe 80% of the original weight, so that was a big win. The bottom stone is a tourmaline, the same thing. It had a big window. It just needed some love and it changed the color. So I do a lot of that where I'll kind of look at a stone and be able to find something that the original cutter hadn't done right. And you can really play with those angles and make sure they jump. I also love using concave faceting to do that. I think it adds a ton of brilliance and a different look to stones that usually sets it aside from a lot of other people's work. And the stone on the right's a Montana sapphire. I tend to do a lot with sapphires recently. They're great for engagement rings, and they just cut so beautifully. They rarely give you problems. You can cut a sapphire and you don't have to worry about little scratches or parts falling off, or like tourmaline, sometimes they just crack in half just because I feel like it. So I've been playing a lot with Montana sapphires and a lot of Ceylon sapphires recently. So I'm not sure, do I have another slide? Oh, I do have more slides, good. So this is a couple pieces of my gold work. So the bottom piece is a rainbow moonstone I had done in 18 karat. The back of it's actually in platinum. And I just love these rainbow moonstones. I had bought a parcel of them a couple years ago and they were just spectacular. This is for one of my good clients. She's, had me make a bunch of wonderful pieces for her and usually just kind of tells me, go for it, just design something, let's see what happens. And it's really wonderful to be able to play like that. The piece on the top I made for another great client. That was a Nasarawa aquamarine. So I had partnered with my friend Jeff Hateman and Josh Hyman with those aquamarines. So we bought the entire, like everything available at the time, and we processed it all and then ended up selling some and still sell some. But it's the most beautiful blue aquamarine. It's this beautiful teal, and just I thought it was sapphire when it was first shown to me. The color was so deep. So again, this is all platinum. It's a mixture of fabrication and CAD. So we can jump to the next one now.
And it's front and back, right? So we're not looking at, yeah.
Yeah, that was front and back. So the front is just as beautiful as the back of that piece. And that took a while. That took some time to put together. But it was so much fun to make. And then these are probably some pieces that are more famous that I've made. The kaleidoscope was a piece that I made out of all main tourmaline. That's about 9 ounces of 18 karat gold and all main tourmaline. I had cut the lenses. There's a lens that you look into. There's a lens in the back that's all fantasy cut. And then there's mirrors on the inside. And then on the end where you can see the pink, there's 2 lenses that are kind of sandwiched like this, and there's tourmaline that fills in. So when you move the kaleidoscope, it actually moves the stones and changes the colors inside. And this piece is actually, it's on display. It's on in GIA's permanent collection. So if you ever go to GIA in Carlsbad, you can actually see that one. And that's, I wish everyone could look inside it. It's really fun. You just kind of sit and play with it. I mean, that was my point, was I wanted to make something that was an object of art that people could pick up, and you almost couldn't help but pick it up. I really like that feeling. It's the same thing with the top next to it that I made. I wanted people to walk by and just go, I want to play with that. And when I had that in Tucson, everybody that walked by would stop and go, oh, I know that, and they'd want to pick it up and play with it and spin it around. And I think it's a fun piece. And that one recently was donated to UMaine Orono, so it's up. It'll be up on display up there.
Derek, I've seen those pieces. They're actually quite big because there are no scales here. I don't think people can. Can you give us some measurements, not just the weight, but the measurements, because they're huge.
Yeah, so the kaleidoscope is like life size. I mean, it's like 6 or 7 inches long. It's like this big, and I mean, like an inch or inch and a half in diameter. The top is the same thing, maybe 2 inches in diameter. It's a couple ounces of 18 karat gold there as well. Yeah, they're both fairly substantial pieces. So yeah, they're not small.
You are shy. You're not talking about your awards or your
Yeah, I didn't even think of
there's so many of them. You have to tell us that.
So yeah, I've won some AGTA awards. I won one in 2017, which was very life-changing for me. I love making gems and jewelry, but it's very difficult to live rurally and get the type of clientele that you need to make bigger, crazier pieces. So I've met a few of those people through social media, which really helped. But the advent of winning an award and entering AGTA Spectrum Awards changed what people would almost give me for work. So yeah, winning awards definitely helps. But I don't think it's everything, but it's fun. It's one of those things where it can help push you and help play kind of with your peers and show what they can do. And it makes you do something different. Like that's what I was doing with the kaleidoscope and with the top. I just wanted to make something new and different because you get kind of not in a rut, but you're making custom work all the time where you're making rings, engagement rings, pendants, which is really fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's also fun to just say, I feel like making this. I'm an artist and I'm just going to go and make it because I feel like it. So that's where kind of some of these came from. Like the kaleidoscope took me 3 months. I basically just told people no for 3 months. I'm busy. And I had a good sale. I sold a large parcel of Maine tourmalines, so I had some money sitting aside. So I said, if I'm going to make something, now's the time. Otherwise, I'm going to spend the money on other stones or whatever else, other materials, and I'll never make the time to do it. So that's, I guess, one of the reasons I did that.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you. I think we're done with all our images. So I want to ask you more questions. We'll chat because first of all, I'd like to thank you all. You all emphasize the importance of education and also the idea of getting the education in its place and working with right people. Networking is very important for our business. So it doesn't matter what you do in gemology, you need to know people, you need to mix with people. That's what we love about AGA, for example. I mean, this is not a plug, but I can tell that whatever background you're coming from, once you get the gem bug, like you had at that show, Derek, or you had in the museum, Adam, you just cannot drop it. And what makes this business wonderful is mixing with other people and networking. And people are generally very nice and generous, like yourselves, and sharing information and helping others. This is a wonderful business to be in. But in the meantime, the general sense I got here is that you really like to do everything yourselves. So you are self-employed, you're cutting your own stones, you're making your own jewelry, you're running your own businesses, and you are young people with young families as well. And my question to you is, how do you manage it all? I mean, how does it work when you're doing everything yourself? Apart from being very hardworking and dedicated, I'm not going there, but especially under such difficult economical conditions, general situation in the world, gold prices going crazy and inflation here, and lots of controversial problems related to stones and traveling on top of it. And you are very active on social media as well. I want to ask you all how that works all together. How do you manage that? I think we have a lot of people in the audience that would like to ask. Maybe they want to follow the same path, but I'd like them to see the reality of these beautiful things created and how they are coming to be reality. So can I start with you, Adam, on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like time management is probably the most crucial thing to, running the business and making everything. Setting aside non-bench time is super important because there are so many different admin things that you have to do. from, you know, taxes to uploading things to the website to responding to messages, new client meetings, stuff like that. So just having a really good way to organize yourself and all these different things you have to do is really crucial. I maybe I'm like a little bit old school, but I pretty much write everything down in a notebook, and I have a whiteboard and different Excel spreadsheets that helps me track everything, like where projects are at, where clients are at, if we need to get a deposit or if we're waiting on a response from them on CAD designs. So just trying to stay super diligent and organized throughout everything that I do is just crucial. The rising inflation prices on everything, I mean, knock on wood, it hasn't affected my business substantially. We still have a large clientele base. We're definitely fortunate for where we're at. Being in Durango, we're in a sort of tourist town and we're right on Main Street. So during the summer months, we have a lot of tourism, and even in the winter, there's a ski mountain pretty close by. So we have a lot of new business coming in and out, and then there's not a ton of other jewelry competition. So most of the stores here that sell jewelry are more like galleries, and they're bringing in other artists and stuff like that. There are a handful of other jewelers in Durango for sure, but there's less competition for repair work and custom orders and stuff like that. So I think we're a little bit fortunate that we're not feeling the pinch too badly. But then also having multiple streams of revenue has been really nice for that. Like, so the online portion, being really diligent on social media, trying to post fairly regularly, and I've been trying to post more trendy or you know, entertaining content versus rather than just here's the ring, look at it sort of thing. So trying to engage with people a little bit more just to get more social media engagement, which just leads to more sales. That combined with our retail side has just been a good success for us.
Great, thank you. Just to remind to our audience, by the way, Kate is sharing a lot of information on the chat box that includes the websites of our panelists and their social media handles. So if you want to see more, please have a look at there too. How about you, Rita? How does that work?
Well, I would say that in a way it's good to be in control of absolutely everything, but at the same time it's one of the worst options because you lose so much time on things that could be done by somebody else. Starting from photography, which most of us have to do ourselves. It's nice that you can control it. You can show exactly the angles and the details and stuff that you want people to see. But again, at least I lose quite a lot of time because I have to do all that too instead of hiring somebody who could do it possibly better than I can. The other thing is well, social media, which is something we just have to do, even if we don't like it. We just have to do it because it's the world we live in. And I guess consistency is key. As long as you make interesting things. This is something. This is an advice I have to start following myself more. The business itself, I would say a lot of business comes through previous customers. Well, the truth is that your work does speak for yourself. The other thing is that if you do things that almost no one else does around here, then, well, you will be found, because that just happens. We have almost no gemologists here, so everything related to gems kind of gets to me at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, hard working and timing. Yeah, I can get the message from both of you. How about you, Derek?
So there's a variety of topics there. You know, trying to stay organized is very difficult for me. Because I'm doing so many different things at once, I'm often multitasking way too many things at once. And because of that, probably not being as efficient as I could be. Kind of like what Rita was saying, I could probably hire it out and make more money, but I'd rather do all of those things and learn about them. And then to me, that's the journey in jewelry making and lapidary, and all of it is that learning. That's what keeps me invested in all of it. And that's what I love about this trade, is there's always something new to learn. You can always learn more, and I don't see an end to it. So that's part of it. And that ties in with the business side of things, that if your customers are always seeing you learn and do something new, they want that little next piece that you've created. So I started doing enamel work, and so customers that I've seen that have, you know, or that have seen my work before, like, oh, I'd love to commission a piece that has that involved in it as well. So we just kind of keep building on that platform. And the same thing, going back to what Rita said, was, you know, your work will speak for itself. One of my friends, Michael Diber, said that. He told me, it's like, you know, you don't really have to advertise if your work is that good. Like, let it speak for itself. And I really haven't advertised other than posting on social media, which I started a long time ago. And I think I did mostly because of the business. You know, I think if I didn't have the business, I'd probably, you know, post just pictures of my kids and family things, and that'd be about it. But I mostly just do gemstones, and lately I've been doing some photography. But I think that really grabs people's attention, and then they want to be part of what you're doing, and see kind of what you're doing every day. And it makes it fun. It makes it fun for me too, because then I can interact with those customers daily rather than kind of waiting for them to come in. You know, but the overall idea, I think, for me was just adding to everything that I do. So I love learning those new things, and I love being able to share kind of what I'm working on. Because I think Adam works in a storefront, so you probably have a little more like people kind of coming in and out, things like that. I work pretty much alone in my studio all day. So social media is kind of helpful for me in that way, because I can actually talk to people. Otherwise, it's only when people set up appointments, which is okay. You know, I'm very happy working alone in my little room, just kind of making stuff and finding that zone where nobody, you know, kind of disturbs me. I love that time. But it's so important to be able to reach out, and social media has given us this great opportunity to do that. Because before that, like, I don't know how I would have made a business like I have now. It just would have been impossible. So I think anyone that's new to starting a business, I would say use social media as much as you can, and hire a bookkeeper. Those are the first two things I would do. I did my own taxes for 11 years, and I hired a tax person 2 years ago. It was the best thing I ever did. Then you can focus on just your work rather than having to spend all that time like bookkeeping and going through all of that. So those are kind of two big pieces of advice, I would say.
Great, thank you. I want to say that, I mean, I'm not a social media person, but as much as I could see on your accounts, you love sharing. It's not just about trying to sell your products, and that's what you all expressed. Your work is good, you like sharing it, and they find you anyway, but also you share step-by-step work, and I think attracts a lot of attention. People would like to see, because the new generation clients are into stories. So you're literally giving the story of the piece. By the time it's finished, they want to have it anyway, because they have the story right in front of them on their phone. So that actually is great approach. And I love the fact that you're so generous about sharing that information, because there are people in business that they wouldn't like to share any of that other than the finished product and trying to sell it. But your generosity, I think, makes a huge difference in your approach. So we appreciate that. Thank you. Now, I'm going to ask our audience if they would like to join in and ask questions. I already received one question, but please just type in whatever you would like to ask. Don't be shy. As you can see, they're very nice and answer anything. Just go ahead. I have Charlene Bradbury asking, do Derek or Adam have booths somewhere in Tucson? I'd like to extend that question a bit. Do you actually go to shows and open booths, or you just go to shows to have fun and buy stuff?
I mean, I've set up in Tucson before. I actually set up with my friend Brian, and that's how I met Rita. Rita was working with Brian. And I absolutely hated sitting in a booth all week. It was awful. Like, other than like joking around, like with everyone that was there, like in that same booth, it's a great experience to meet someone and like meet like all of your like friends and gem friends. But I don't sit well. I need to walk around and move around and like go source stones and meet those clients and meet the sources that I've developed. So I don't set up. I mostly do everything online right now. I find it's much easier, and I use Instagram the most to sell on. But also keep in mind, I think all of us are like, we're one person, so the amount of total volume we can create is not like, it's not massive. If we're making artistic pieces, you're going to have these handful of pieces every year. So it doesn't make sense for me personally unless I really ramp up and move more towards like a, you know, just kind of more cookie cutter type stuff to get to that size. But I love going to Tucson. I love meeting people and talking to people, but having a booth for me isn't what I want to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not really super into setting up a booth. I mean, I've done like a pop-up show the last year, just a one-night event, just mostly like an after hours, after gem show thing for people to come by and hang out and check out new work and stuff like that. I think that's pretty fun. But the whole week-long or even 2-week-long show is just kind of too much. I don't have that big of an inventory ever, where it would really make sense to set up like a whole booth and do the whole thing.
Thank you. Rita?
Yeah, I haven't had my own booth. I have worked a booth for a friend, but it was a great experience. But Derek is right in the sense that you lose out on so much because you spend the most important time of the Tucson you will spend sitting in the booth. Of course, you can still go to the after parties and all that, but some shows you will never even see because they are exactly on the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I will definitely be going back to Tucson, but now not working in a booth. I will go to visit other booths.
Maybe you should get a joint, but then you can bring everything you want to sell, and then some of you take care of it while the others are walking around and come back and take over. Clearly, we have people asking for that. That might work.
Yeah, I've had friends that do that too, and I think it works out well. The problem for me is always it's getting enough volume that I want to bring with me, and the headache of inventory and sales, and it's much more fun to go out there and buy as a buying trip than a selling trip.
Yeah, it's kind of like a week-long shopping vacation. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Well, Tucson is always fun anyway, but it's a very tiring vacation. Let's put it that way. If you want to look at it as vacation, no, it's a very tiring trip, but we love it. Okay, I have a question for you, Derek. Tara Chapman is asking, what were the 2 steps that you mentioned to help get started?
It depends where you're, like, the exact starting point. The 2 things that I mentioned were using social media. Number one, because it's free and it reaches so many people. It's like having a storefront where 1,000 people walk by, you know, every day. Just starting off, like if you don't pay them money or don't do anything, which I don't. The second thing is hiring a bookkeeper, just to help you as you bring in sales to organize everything. I originally, when I first started, there wasn't really a great way of doing it, so I used like just paper. I wrote everything down on these like receipt books, and it was awful. Now I use QuickBooks Online, and that's the fastest way I've found to invoice customers. You can send people, you know, an invoice and then pay it online, and just goes right to your bank account. And then when tax season comes, you just push a button and it's done. So you don't have to worry about that. So those are the 2 biggest things that I think really helped me. But that's more on the business side. You know, on the creative side, you have to follow what you really are passionate about. And if you follow that, you're going to find that niche of what you like really fall into. And you'll meet more people that are like-minded, and you'll develop this, you know, this group of people. I mean, there's a lot of people that I talk to online that have similar skill sets that teach me things, and I teach them things, and you trade information, learn from each other. And that's, again, going back to social media, where you can learn and follow people and, you know, develop these relationships. And that's been absolutely key in the business that I've built.
Okay, thank you. Well, we do have time, so keep asking questions. Definitely do that. Obviously, I have tons of questions that I can ask. One of the things that I love asking generally in all panelists, and to all of you actually, if you didn't do this, if you didn't become a gemologist or a jewelry artist or a lapidarist, what do you think you would be?
I don't think it'd be very much fun. Me personally, I would probably have pursued something in geology, either at a mining job or in oil and gas. I don't think I would enjoy it a lot. I worked in oil and gas before I worked at the museum, and I would go out to rigs in like the middle of winter, in the middle of the night, and go catch core, and then bring it back to our lab and run a bunch of tests on it, pull samples and stuff, and it was no fun, or I didn't enjoy it at least. So I think that's probably where I would be, but I don't think I'd be very happy.
Rita?
Considering my past, I would say it's most likely that if I didn't have any of these skills related to jewelry and gems and no experience in that, I would probably work as a dealer in a casino because this is what I've already done, and I know I can do it, and I have nothing against it. It's just a way to have a stable income, and I would just be playing the whole time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
My own money.
Derek?
Yeah, I would. That's a good question for me. Like I said, I started off with biology, but it just died for me when I went to college. I didn't like it. I felt boring, and I wasn't into it. I'd probably do something outside. I'd probably either be like in Maine, we have a thing called a Maine guide, where you can go and bring people like fishing and bring them to certain places. I'd probably do something kind of like that. I like being outside. I like, you know, experiencing it and moving. Again, I'm not sitting all day. So probably something more in that direction.
Great, thanks. By the way, we're receiving a lot of thank yous and how much they love your work. And I have Audrey Adjorn saying that one of your work actually she bought and she loves the ring.
It's a beautiful
So we have many people appreciating all that. Now, the other question I want to ask is that as a finished article that you've done from scratch, literally. I know, Derek, you can even go and collect the mineral you want to cut. That's where you are in Maine. But what would be the best material you start with and you would always work with, in terms of stones, in terms of designs, in terms of metal, that you would never get tired of working with? And the very opposite, that you don't want to touch. I would not touch to this material ever again. So the two extremes I'm asking. Who would like to start again? You all look very...
I'm happy to answer this one. I love working with sapphires. They're so forgiving. Every stone's different between their colors, the inclusions, if they're heated or not, the location. They're all so wonderful to work with, and they're durable. So your customer's always happy with them. They're hard to destroy. And then as for metal, platinum. I mean, I hate that it takes so long to polish, but I love working with it with gravers and stone setting. I mean, it's like, a joy. So those are my two favorites. And then I really don't like silver. It's where everyone starts, but it's just dirty. It heats up when you polish it. It burns your fingers. Yeah, all of those things. It's not my favorite. So.
Okay, good one. Thank you. Rita?
Well, I would say that I will probably always work with silver also, besides gold. But to be honest, the truth is that what I realized that the more I worked with gold, the less I liked silver as a material. But it has its own qualities, and it has its own challenges. And I will probably keep using it still forever. With gems, sapphires are one of the best options for everything because, well, the durability, the colors, and all that, it makes the most sense. But I can't really decide what would be the thing that I hate so much that I would never want to work with. I know it does exist, but I just I cannot remember it. Maybe I've just buried it somewhere back on my mind.
Maybe you didn't hate it so much then.
Maybe I hated it so much that I can't even
completely canceled it out. Okay, that's a good one. Okay, Adam?
The material that I'd always work with is definitely sapphires. I mean, they're just so hard, they're durable, they come in so many different shades, and they cut so well. They're fun to polish. I primarily think my favorite metal is gold. I just love the way that it works, especially with gravers and burring, drilling. Soldering it is a dream. As long as the metal is basically clean, you shouldn't have really any issues. My least favorite material is probably silver also, just because of the same reasons. I mean, I've worked with it so much, and it's what everybody starts with, but I don't feel like it takes a super good polish unless it's a really, really hardened piece of metal. I've noticed a lot of like casted pieces in silver just really don't take very good polishes, and I like to have really nice high polished material, and so when I have to fight a piece of metal for longer than I should, I get frustrated with it. And then gem material wise, I hate topaz. I've cut one topaz in my career as a gem cutter, and I don't know if I'll ever do it again. It was so bad on the polish. I think that I had it, I don't think I oriented it right, and I think I had it, one of the cleavage planes was like right on a fairly large facet, and it wouldn't polish. I mean, I spent probably I don't know, 6 hours trying to polish one facet, and it's had all these little blemishes and spots, and eventually I just took it off the top and threw it away. I didn't even complete it. I was done with it. So I haven't touched it since. Maybe now that I'm more experienced, and I was talking to Derek about some like lap tips that maybe I might try those on a topaz and
They work a
give it
lot,
another
yeah.
shot.
Yeah,
But
laps work fantastic with topaz.
yeah, I might need to try it now that I have that tip. But beforehand, I've pretty much sworn it off.
Wow, this is wonderful because it just shows how much you get connected with what you're working with. This is really nice to hear that. I will ask this question, and this is important because as a GA, obviously our mission is to bring education for gemology or any gemology related subject. And I'd like you to each touch on how useful your gemology education became for you when you started your journey. Would it be the same success or love that you have for your business if you didn't study gemology and you just thought, well, I'll learn as I go along anyway? Can you give us a little bit of your take on importance of gemological education in your careers? Adam, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, cool. I think it's crucial to do the GG or the GEMA program, just getting some sort of gemological education, being able to correctly identify gemstones in a non-destructive way is really, really important. You know, so many gemstones look very similar to the eye that you really need to test them, and especially with synthetics or glass or other imitation stones, it's just really crucial. But also getting the GG really like honed in my skills and allowed me to kind of realize what is a good looking stone and what it takes to make a good finished piece of jewelry. So I think it's definitely crucial.
Thank you. Rita?
I think it's important. For example, to be a gem cutter, you don't have to be a gemologist. You don't have to have the paper, but you do have to have some gemological knowledge. I would say that one thing that is important for me about the gemology is that well, my journey started from the outside of jewelry, which means that the conceptions of the pieces that are created are very important. The stories behind the things. So if we talk about gems and we compare natural gems with their synthetic counterparts, it's not just about the value. It's about also the meaning behind the materials. That I mean, the stories how they came to be. It's also a part of the final piece, in my opinion. So this is just one side that I think is also important.
Thank you. Derek?
So yeah, I think when I first got into gemology, I didn't realize even what it was, and I didn't realize the importance of it. I got to GIA and I didn't realize a variety of those things that really are so important. The connections, number one, and just the idea of being there and seeing what everyone else is doing, what has been done, learning some history, learning to pronounce even the words correctly. A lot of people, can't pronounce, a lot of the stone names right. And they'll be really experienced and they'll say, like peridot, or, they can't pronounce melee, they'll say things incorrectly. And I think when you go into the trade, like if you're talking to another dealer, you want to sound like you're educated. You want to sound like you know what you're talking about. And that goes a long way. I think I probably, within the 6-month class, I probably pulled in 3 or 4 years of knowledge within that time period, and just, it's a huge jump start. And then the other thing is, anytime you meet anyone from the trade and you'll say, oh yeah, I'm a GG, they'll say, oh wow, like that's amazing, either I am too, or I know this person that is, and it kind of, it's a leg up on everything. It's almost like instant, like, you know, credibility amongst most people. It's a great way to get a job as well. I mean, there's always stores looking for a job if you want to just get that first kind of foot in the door and figure out where you're going. You know, it's a great starting point. But after going through that entire start to finish, I would absolutely do it again, and I would absolutely recommend doing it. And that's, I tell a lot of people, you know, that they should, and they should look into the scholarships. You know, I think it's really important that GIA offers that. I know AGA offers scholarships. I just got the email about that, and I forwarded it to a few people.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I want to see more people that are you know, passionate really do this, and I think that's the way to do it.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate that. This is important, and also the way that you mentioned, everybody looks for a gemologist if you want to start from somewhere. That's another point that we should make to newcomers. There isn't such a thing as a little job or a small job, because everything is experience in gemology. Would you agree with that? So that you would start and learn more as you go along. So yeah, I think that's what I always tell my students. Getting a gemology diploma is only a beginning, and then the rest of it comes with more experience and so on. And I have a feeling, since you understand the importance of education, you're also into further education. So you need to keep up with what's going on in the market, what's going on with the new mines, new resources, new styles, and so on. So yeah, that's a great point that you all made. Learning gemology and how much it affected your position today. So that's a great point. Thank you, appreciate that. Now we're coming to the end, and I would like to ask you, each of you, if there's anything else you would like to say to our audience, you would like to share, or maybe be missed during our chat. And maybe a little bit of advice to newcomers or people who are interested. Just your time for a few minutes, and we have all your informations already shared with the audience, so I'm sure they will find you. Sometimes, you know, shy ones don't talk to us, but they might find you directly. But yeah, who would like to start?
I'm happy to start. I think that I have no problem talking about gems and gemology for a long time. I think that, you know, reach out to any of us is what I would say. If you have questions, I mean, everyone that's in this industry is really passionate about things, and they are passionate about what they do, especially people, you know, like Adam and Rita and Cheatham. I mean, we're all passionate. We all love what we do, and that's why we do it. It's not, you know, because we're forced to be, you know, gemologists and gem cutters. So if you're starting off, you know, ask questions. Where should I go with this? Or, you know, even people that are really experienced, like we'll talk about little tips and tricks of how we do things, from photography to stone cutting, you know, bead setting, you know, how to sharpen your graver, all of those things. There's little tricks that all of us learn along the way, and sharing that is important. I feel like the days of kind of like hoarding information are slowly kind of going away, which is what most of our industry was based on. I do think there's little tips that most people hold on to themselves, but for the most part, it's all shared. It's out there to learn. So definitely, you know, reach out and talk to people, send messages. You know, most people are happy to help.
Thank you. I just want to plug in before getting your answers, because our good friend Sarah Steele once said that we're living in a great time of gemology because all the rock stars of gemology are available to us. You can call anybody, you can You know, we had great interviews with John Koivula. We have at AGA, all the well-known gemologists are our members. Anytime we want to talk to them, we can reach out to them. So I don't remember throughout my career that I asked the question I didn't get an answer. And if they didn't know the answer, they would actually direct me to the right person. And that sharing, that networking is really a good thing. So thanks for bringing that up, Derek. It's important to be able to talk about that. And organizations like AGA and alumni and other groups are very important to be part of in that regard. I just wanted to plug that in so that people shouldn't feel you know, I don't know any of these people. I can't ask the question. Well, you will know if you reach out to them. So that's a good point. Thank you. Okay, Rita?
I would say that it's related to that also. I would say it's nice that the world of gemology is very international, which means that if you already are a gemologist, it's not like you're stuck someplace. You can relocate. I mean, you can move somewhere in the US. You can move to Bangkok, or well, there are so many options really. And since you can connect to other gemologists, the networking is very important, because through all that, your life itself will change. Or can change. So just up to taking a step.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, that's another thing. Although it's a global subject, business, most people know each other. It doesn't matter where they live, especially places like Tucson or Denver or Munich. They come together and we all know each other. It's always fun. So yeah, that's a great point too. Thanks, Rita. Adam?
I would say for somebody that's just starting out, just go for it. If you're interested in any sort of topic, go for it. I mean, the reason why that I do jewelry and I cut stones and do all this other stuff is because I found it interesting and I wanted to learn how to do it. You know, getting the fastening machine and getting some of the higher level jewelry tools are obviously expensive, and that's sort of an endeavor, but the basic stuff, you know, is a great starting point. Start messing with the craft and see if this is something that you like and something that you want to pursue, you know, and see if it's really meant for you. That's kind of what I did.
Great, thank you. Well, this was great. Thank you, and thank you for being so generous with your time and sharing your information, your great work. We do appreciate this a lot. I appreciate it personally, and I thank you on behalf of AGA and our membership and all the other people that who joined us today. So thank you so very much. I'd like to remind all our audience that lots of events coming up. We have a very interesting webinar coming in May. It's going to be on meteorites and gemstones related to meteorites. So that's going to be a fun topic. We have our June, half-day June conference is coming. It will be a virtual event, so it's again open to anyone, and make sure that you check the links and register for it. And also our new website is full of all sorts of different information. We had questions coming through about scholarships especially. We started offering both gemological education scholarship and also the gemological research grant. Please check our website in details. We highly encourage you for that. With all that, thank you for your time. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you in our next event. Stay with colorful gemstones and have fun. Okay, bye-bye.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.